Welcome to this episode. Going to be a shorter one this time. Well, maybe. No cycling in this one, just me talking about and reflecting upon my first season as a randonneer. So if my end of ride roundups are maybe not the reason you watch my videos, you might want to switch off now. So I think really I need to kind of split this video up into two chunks, right? I mean, you've got pre-COVID season and you've got post-lockdown season. Given the situation, I think it'd be pretty difficult to do anything else really. So if we roll back here to October 2019, it's the beginning of my first full season. And I'm looking at the different types of events that there are in ODAC. So, we've got permanents, we've got DIYs, and we've got calendar events. Now, initially, I thought that the vast majority of rides I do would always be calendar events. That really didn't turn out that way. Even by November, I had kind of made a decision, actually, that for a few different reasons, calendar events probably weren't going to be the way that I was going to tackle the season. Now, there's two main reasons for this. One, I wanted to travel less to the start of events. Mostly, I just want to drive the car less. So that puts you in a little bit of difficulty because the Midlands does not have a huge amount of ODAX events going on. It just isn't a very densely packed calendar in this kind of geographical location. So yeah, that's going to be an issue. And the second thing as well is that actually doing DIYs is just way more convenient, right? You can do a route that you fancy doing. Route planning is something I really enjoy doing. So, that's not like that's a hassle for me. And you can do it when you want to do it. It was kind of funny for me that it really wasn't very long that I came to that decision. And I think the thing that really sort of got me there actually was the trip I did back in November, where I rode out to March in Cambridgeshire to go and visit my nan. It was a ride that I'd wanted to do for quite a long time, but just somehow never got round to. And doing the sort of the 200 there and then coming back the next day on another 200, it just kind of really cemented into my head like, yeah, actually DIYs, it's just how much more convenient is that? So yeah, what I thought from that point was that, it'd be nice to go and do a calendar event at least once a month, but I'll try and fill up all the other distance that I need to do for the awards I was going for with DIYs, and hopefully that would be less hassle and would just provide me with a bit of extra flexibility. In terms of calendar events, the standout calendar event for me was the Moonrakers and Sunseekers out of Bristol. That was a 300k night ODAX. Started at 10 p.m, 150k down to Poole on the Dorset coast, down to the Lilliput Scout Hut, and then back to Bristol for sort of lunchtime, late afternoon. Excellent event, really enjoyed it. Other one I really enjoyed was Up and Down Like a Yo-Yo. It's the first one I've done down in Devon, and I've ridden in Devon a little bit. My girlfriend's parents are from there, so it's an area I've visited a lot. So it was really nice actually to just go and do a kind of nice big long ride down there and just see a little bit more of Devon, a little bit further away from where they are. So yeah, those two events, great. So in terms of notable DIYs in that period, and this is October to March I'm talking about now, so pre-season suspension. There was the one trip to go and see my nan, which I've already mentioned. This was sort of notable for me for a couple of reasons, really. One, I'd wanted to do that trip for quite a long time. Two, it really sort of spoke to me in terms of like going and doing something that you want to do before it's too late. Because sadly in January she died. Now I could have looked at that November 400k over 2 days that I did there and said, you know what, weather's looking real rough, I'll save this one for next summer, and it would have been too late. So there was a nice little lesson there for me personally about just going and doing it, whatever it is you want to do. The second one was the trip I did in March, the trip out around Wales. That was the 4-day, 800k trip. Yeah, that was really, really good. I really enjoyed that one. It was nice to do something that was kind of slightly different to all the traditional bike packing that I'd done for so long, because I didn't sleep out. I didn't rough it really. I did a few youth hostels and a B&B, and yeah, that was really nice. It was great to actually go and do 4 long, big days like that and feel really good for all of it. It took me a good long while to recover from that one. Lockdown was probably a good thing in some regards, but yeah, that trip is on the channel. There were 3 videos I did for that, part 1 and part 2, and then an unpacking video as well. So that might be something to catch up on if you didn't see that the first time round. So then we got to lockdown and the season being suspended. Now, this was obviously disappointing for everyone. I really wasn't surprised when this happened. And overall, I think in the main, Audax UK did a reasonably good job around the communication on this. I remember back at the time I did a video about where I kind of touched on this a little bit around what happened when they actually went into the suspended season and the way that that was communicated. And sure, I think it could have been done slightly differently, but I think it was an impossible situation they were in. I think whatever happened, there would have been people who would have moaned and complained about it. So yeah, it was what it was. The one small negative that I've got to talk about, though, in terms of the Audax community, really did rear its ugly head during that lockdown period. So I'd always found the Audax community to be extremely warm and welcoming, a very broad church where if you're fast, if you're slow, doesn't matter what bike you ride, if you're on a recumbent or a trike, or I've seen TT bikes at Audax's, it didn't matter. Nobody cared, and it was just about riding bikes, and that was a very warm and welcoming community. Except when we got into that lockdown period, something that I kind of felt quite uncomfortable about in the community was the way in which there was a probably small but very vocal part of the community that seemed to really want to impose on others whatever their set of rules were that they were adhering to during lockdown. Now, we had a set of rules laid out for us about what we could and couldn't do during that period. And as far as I was concerned, they were the rules that we were all being asked to follow. And as long as you stuck to those, I didn't have a problem with you. However, there were a lot of people who actually wanted to hold themselves to a different set of rules. And the amount of people that were on particularly the Facebook group for Audax UK basically trying to impose these other rules that they'd just created for themselves, around not riding at all during that period, just frankly really annoyed me. You've got no right to do that. Keep it to yourself. Do what you like. If you've decided that you don't want to ride during that period, well, power to you. That's up to you. But to try and impose that on others, it left a bad taste in my mouth, honestly. And the worst bit about it as well, actually, was even once we were kind of over the first kind of month or two, and people were talking about, I wonder how the season might restart. I wonder what the crack might be then. There were people even trying to shut down the conversation around that because they were like, oh, well, this isn't the time to be talking about riding bikes again. Utterly ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. So yeah, that left a little bit of a bad taste in the mouth to sort of experience that side of the community at that point. So moving on, then we came to the second part of the season. 1st of August came round and the season restarted and we could only do up to 200s. So I'd already taken a little bit of a re-evaluation, if you like, over my goals for this season. I'd pretty much ditched the idea of taking a SR series and the same for the AAA SR series, and was really sort of what I had in my head at the restart of the season was entirely R5000. It's all I had on my mind. At that point, we had a 9-week window I needed to do 9 200s to hit my goal. It seemed pretty clear to me what I had to do. But then things kind of changed up a little bit, right? We then had the situation where they decided to switch the end of the season to bring it in line with everybody else's ODAC seasons around the world, which gave us an extra month. On top of that, they then also started validating longer rides up to 600. And this put me in a little bit of a quandary at this point, because I was kind of like, oh, well, you know what? Like, I've got an opportunity here to get an SR series done. And actually, if I get a 400 and a 600 done, that's a huge chunk of the distance I need for an R5000. So I had at it. And yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get either of those two rides done. Now, obviously, there was the 600 that I did the episode on. Waking up to Storm Ella the next morning on the second day. That was pretty unfortunate, but it was what it was. And the 400, which I didn't do an episode on, and I don't think I've even really talked about, actually. So essentially what happened during that one was that, I was going pretty good. I was going great guns, actually. I was feeling really good. So to cut a long story short, I got to about 310, 320k. And over the previous sort of 2.5-3 hours, I'd had 3 punches. And that third puncher was right in Gloucester. I basically didn't have a spare tube. I was really struggling to even see the holes in the dark to be able to try and fix it. And yeah, I pretty much just decided, right, well, I think this is done. Managed to get a Premier in for the night. Managed to then get in a bike shop the next morning to pick up some spare tubes, and I rode myself home that day. Did the 400, but of course I was out of time, so that was kind of pretty unfortunate, really. Like the mechanical and punches at that, ridiculous. Anyway, yeah, that something like that should have stopped me getting that 400. So actually, this then left me in a little bit of a hole because I had a load of rides to get done and I was rapidly running out of time. And ultimately, I got them done. It wasn't the end to the season that I was hoping for. I'm really having to kind of try and remind myself that actually my view of this season could be quite skewed by the end of that, because there was a whole bunch of rides at the end there that I was just getting done. Yeah, there's a number that I would honestly say that I didn't really enjoy a huge amount. There was some that I enjoyed some, and probably from that 9 200s, there was probably only 2 that I would say I really enjoyed, which is a little bit of a shame. But ultimately, hit me goal, so I'm happy about that. Was never going to be the season that I think any of us expected. It was a weird first season for me. On the whole, though, I think I have to look back on this season positively. I hit a bunch of my goals. I enjoyed the vast majority of the rides I did. I mean, hey, it was probably only somewhere in the region of maybe 3 or 4 of the 22 200s I did over the course of this year that were the ones I kind of, want to forget. So yeah, I mean, you can't call a season bad for those, right? So anyway, just a little bit on targets for next season. I haven't completely decided what I'm going for yet, but I am aiming to do less rides. I'm hoping actually that once we're out of this second lockdown period, we'll quickly have a return to being able to do up to 600s, maybe further than that. I would like to get 1000k at least done this year. I would really like for Le Jog 1400 to be on next summer. Obviously, we know that London, Edinburgh, London is off, which again, not really that surprised about, and it's probably the best thing, really. Like I say, I want to do less rides this time, so I want to do more longer rides. I'm certainly, I think, going to look at trying to get more AAA awards in this next year, less distance, more climbing, but I think I'll probably touch on that maybe in the next video, or maybe a couple of videos time once we're really into the next season. So yeah, I hope that wasn't too much just me talking at you for a little bit. And yeah, hopefully you had a really good season, and hopefully we can all look forward to a good season coming now.